Drink Tank.
Okay.
And we're back.
Never left. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Drink Tank.
Oh, this is a drink tank.
Yeah, why not?
Branded. Hey, well, we are drinking.
We sit around and we talk about things while we drink.
I like it.
Drink Tank.
I like it. Well, what are we talking about today, Derek?
I'm glad you asked. So in today's very special episode of Schlender 5 Productions Presents Drink Tank, we are joined by the three Schlender Brothers. We have Dylan, who fans of the channel are familiar with, and our youngest
Fan
brother,
of the channel is familiar with.
Yes.
It's me.
who I see when I edit these videos far too frequently. And then we also have our youngest brother, Casey.
In his Schlender 5 debut, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on a couple of the Baldur's Gate videos as
But this is my first
In
person.
In person,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, in person.
It's just as glamorous as we described it.
Is it? I did shoot my head in the wall.
So anyways, this is a video Casey's been wanting to do for a while. And
Yes.
we are going to be discussing our top 5 favorite RPGs.
Now, that's a role-playing game.
Yes. Anyways, we didn't put any restrictions or qualifiers on it, so it's literally just personal favorites. And, because we're huge RPG fans.
Yeah, we
it's,
are.
It's pretty much the only genre of games I play anymore.
Oh, yeah.
The best bang for my buck, I think. And I guess what we'll do is
It is tough to get value out of new games nowadays. 'cause
especially being
they-
$70.
They just come out so piecemeal and buggy and everything. There's something to be said about a very solid single-player RPG experience.
And it's funny that you mention this because I'm looking at my list here, and a lot of them are older games that would have had to launch in the correct state to launch. None of this will fix it in post.
Nope.
Yeah, you know what? My list is the same way, yes.
But of course, it's not surprising to me that a list of some of our favorite RPGs are going to be ones that have like formative experiences for us. Like,
That is true.
because
That is
they're
true.
going to be the metrics by which we judge modern RPGs as well. And
100%.
Depending on how this list shakes out, maybe we'll reconvene some time for like a modern RPGs, like we'll say like within the past decade or something, depending on how the
Ooh,
list
I like
comes out.
that. Yeah.
I haven't played a lot of RPGs of the past decade. How many versions of Skyrim can I put on? Skyrim, the free to release, Skyrim, the remaster, Skyrim on the Switch. I think I could do it.
This list is all. Yeah. So without further ado, I think we'll jump right into it, and I think what we'll do is we'll go youngest to oldest.
I like it. I get to go
right.
second no matter what.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
Hank likes it too.
Hank, you don't get a vote.
All right, so to begin my top 5, I'm going to have to start with a game that came out in 2004. It was a sequel, and I have to say, it was a gem of a game because very rarely in this time frame did you get a good sequel to the original, and that is going to be Shadow Hearts 2 Covenant.
Oh.
It was...
That's the one with Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
No,
Mickey
that's Kingdom
Mouse.
Oh, wait a minute. Did one of us pick Kingdom Hearts? We should have.
No.
No.
Oh.
Quick tangent on that.
My bad.
I beat
It's all right.
I beat the Kingdom Hearts All for One edition, and I did it during COVID lockdown. And Plumber was living here, and he has never heard me swear at a video game as much as I yelled at Kingdom Hearts like Dream Drop Distance. It's one of the worst franchises. I hate Kingdom Hearts. So.
All right. Well, tell us
is
more
fair.
about Shadow Hearts
Covenant.
then.
That's the sequel.
It is
Yeah.
the sequel. So now, the first game was pretty much like a cult classic hit right out the gate. Did not get a lot of momentum and praise, but it did have a small following. The second one just expanded upon what the first one left over, because the whole point of this game is you're this character who can transform into these demons, and you can change your form in combat. And it's just awesome because at the end of the game, you end in this really cool demonic form. You have all these cool things, and then the game the second game starts with someone's hunting this like demon that's been like out in this village. What's going? And it's the main character from the first one, just picking right up. Like, yeah, I stayed with this power, and I'm just out here doing stuff. So you go into the game, and it takes what the first one set and just expands it to a whole nother level.
Awesome.
The combat system is called the Judgment Ring,
Right.
and you have different areas that you can hit. So you can trigger to hit a normal area, but then there's also the finer small areas in the red where you can get critical strikes. And you get to customize them in this one. You can change the impact zones. You have a larger hit space on both of them. And you can also add more to your attacks to add a little bit more chaining.
So is that
effects.
still turn-based though, or is it in real time?
is.
Oh,
No, it is in
okay,
turn-based.
interesting.
So it's turn-based, but you would hit the zones on
Yeah,
it.
hit the-
Like,
yeah,
click,
the
click, click, like time gaming, like a time
Yes,
game. Yeah.
and you even get the ability sometimes to slow them down, maybe speed them up, and you can add more zones to that, so then you can even do more attacks. So if you have a
Interesting.
really strong character and you can go up and hit a lot of times, you can have like up to 5 zones or more, and like boom, 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 and then you have a lot of damage going out. But I think what I really enjoyed about it the most, and this is what I think is one of the most important things with an RPG, it made the grind worth it. It was worth getting the extra end game stuff. It was worth trying to get like the ultimate transformations that you could find. And I'm just talking general level of things here. I'm not gonna do like a crazy deep dive into it. I highly recommend maybe playing it or doing a let's play.
We'll have the graphic right here, so you'll recognize the cover when you Google it.
I already put the graphic up, Dylan.
Oh, you did? Then what did I just point to? Was it Corculon?
Find that image.
But here's the thing too, is in the stage of this game, which again came out in 2004, this is when we were starting to finally get a lot more refined graphics too. So this also gave the opportunity for really good cutscenes. And it left me with, and I don't want to spoil it, but there is a Zeppelin scene. It's iconic for the game.
Smash cut to footage for the Rocketeer.
You put that in every video.
But for picking my top 5, a game that is just fed off of like pure nostalgia and great memory, I have to give the Shadow Hearts 2 Covenant. It just, and very rarely do you get a sequel that actually delivers.
Nice. I've seen some videos going around online. That series is getting a lot of love from like people like around our age who played it back in the day, and so I wouldn't be surprised to find out if there's probably any plans for like a remaster or something.
There is a rumor that I believe there was a Kickstarter where they're looking to actually make a new one, but we will never talk about the third entry in the series ever. If we do maybe a worst 5.
Oh, wow.
Worst. I try not to poo-poo everything I eat. But
All right, a solid way to get the list started. Well, I put a couple personal qualifications on my list just for me to help narrow things down, because I'm really more of a multiplayer guy. So,
that's true.
Like, I would love to just talk about like Diablo 2 and stuff all day. So, my rules for my list is I had to have beaten it.
Okay.
I like it.
I played it when it was contemporary. That's going to be important for one of my options. And it's single player in focus. That way, I think it stays more in the spirit with what you guys were going to be picking. So with that said, number 5 for me is Vandal Hearts from the PlayStation 1, released in 1997. And there's a very important reason why, because this was the game that introduced me to the tactical strategy RPG. This is a grid system. You move your characters around, you place them to attack.
Nice.
Use magic. The areas of effect are all spelled out. So it's a very clean grid system with some 3D environments too at the time. So you're moving up and down around the map instead of just being like on a chessboard. At the time, I really enjoyed the story. I must confess, I can't remember too much of it now. But what I really enjoyed about the game was you had a lot of customization options, even though all your characters in your party were locked in. Right? So each character did get a couple different paths they could go. So like you had an old guy, Huxley. You could make him a really good healer. Or you could even make him like a badass monk. You know, so you get some options, which I really appreciate. And the reason I'm putting this at number 5 on my list is because it introduced me to that genre, which had great games like on the Game Boy Advance and the DS, like Rondo of Swords, Tactics Ogre.
Oh, yeah.
Vandal Hearts 2, not for nothing. Even a little known gem called Future Tactics. These are all games that I really, really liked and really, really gravitated to. And it all started with Vandal Hearts. So that's what it's number 5 for me.
Wow. All right, that's good.
Yeah.
And it's a very beautiful genre too.
Yeah, it is just such a fun genre, you know, and it gives you options, and you're really trying to keep your whole party together. Like, you don't want anyone to die. You want to do it. You want to execute flawlessly, you know, and that game was a lot of fun.
And usually get rewarded for that kind of level of execution as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I loved Vandal Hearts 2, but unfortunately I never beat it because my data got corrupted, and I tried to get back to where I was. It just took so long, though.
It's a long game.
I know, it can be brutal. It can be, because some of these fights can last a long time. So there you go, Vandal Hearts, number 5.
Not bad.
Nice.
I didn't put as many qualifiers into my thing as you, but they're mostly JRPGs. I don't really, up until recently, I didn't have a computer, so I couldn't really play any of those computer RPG style of games. I did attempt to play like Divinity, but for the most part, I'm gonna stick with JRPGs.
Nice.
And my number 5 in terms of favorite is it's a relatively new one. It's probably actually the most recent game on my list. And for me, it's Atelier Rise of 2, the Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy. It's a direct sequel to the first Atelier Paul Reiser. It's a direct sequel to Paul Reiser. To the first Atelier Reiser.
Not to be confused with Paul Schaefer.
No. And
he doesn't play JRPGs.
No.
He hates them.
So
Yes, he does.
I won't go into too much detail about it because it is a direct sequel, and I highly recommend playing the whole trilogy. I actually have a video up on the channel talking about the third game, and
Link for it right here.
I'm not going to put a link into it.
That's
put
what
it on the
content
table.
creators do.
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
It's yeah. But anyways, one of the reasons I like it is because I really like the first one. I really liked how simple it was. I like the sense of scale. I like that the most RPGs, JRPGs are about the power of friendship anyway.
Yeah.
And this one really leans into that. There's it's a pretty cool combat system. A good soundtrack, likable characters, and at the end of the first game, it's like, oh, okay, well, if they ever do a sequel, they've got plenty of stuff to do. And then out comes the sequel, and the way they get the gang back together after the events of the first one, very natural. There's been a time jump, so everybody's a little more like worldly, and their skills have developed, and they've gone and done their own things, and it's just it's like a great the characters have matured. And
How did they justify them starting at level 1 in the sequel? That's what I never understood in these kinds of games.
It doesn't matter.
It's like we saved the world at level 57, and now we're starting over at level 1.
That's
I've got
rough.
a bronze sword. What happened to my mithril plate, guy?
Well, so
did I sell it?
There's a huge time jump, like I said, and there's you end up going to like this city as opposed to like your home atelier, so you have to rebuild your atelier, which means you got to go out into the woods and gather new materials. You didn't bring anything with you. Is kind of how it goes.
Oh, so
Instead
you're
of
in a completely new place.
It's completely new.
All right, that works.
It's got great.
fair.
It has a great soundtrack, great combat, and the story is okay. All right, it's not the best story. You're not going to get blown away by the story, but if you're like me and you think part of the fun of like JRPGs is the character work.
Yeah.
I love the character work. The graphics are bright. It's fun. I get obsessed with getting like materials to like just make like a marginally better version of what I already have.
So how is the grind then? Since you're mentioning that you had got more materials to kind of level things up, did you find the grind on that was overbearing? Did you find it was a good balance?
It's fine. It's
good
fine.
pace?
I mean, it's like any one of these games where it's based around crafting. If you like it, then you don't even feel like you're doing it. Like it's not as grind heavy as it is more like exploration.
Nice.
And
Okay.
once you figure out how like the system works, you can become pretty powerful in it. So most fights aren't that difficult. It's a pretty relaxing game. Love the soundtrack. So that's my number 5 is the second Atelier Ryza. I thought it was wonderful, like watching them mature, and great soundtrack. I mean, I love the soundtrack. I was listening to it the other night. Fantastic stuff.
All right. Hey, stay tuned to find out what number 4 is right after this message.
Welcome to Trailer Trash, where we
And we're back.
Where did I go just now?
Over to Casey for number 4.
All right, so number 4, this game came out in the year 2000.
In the year 2000.
And
Yeah, the Conan bit?
I love it.
Okay. Not crazy.
This game was meant to be Sony's real answer to kind of be their Final Fantasy, and it did not end up getting to that point.
You mean there aren't 19 versions of the game you're about to say?
Is it
Legend
Little Dragoon?
Legend of Dragoon.
It was supposed to be like their attempt at Final Fantasy VII.
I
You're right.
love Legend of Dragoon.
That's a
Great
good one. I
pick.
should have put that on my
Great
list. That's an
pick.
excellent pick.
I never beat it, but if I did, I guarantee it would be on my list.
I never technically beat it. I made it to the end, and then I didn't win the last fight once, and I was like, I'm gonna play something else.
True story about this game and why it's also such a safe number 4 for me is this game meant so much to be able to be like, this is what they want to put up against Final Fantasy. You have the balls to say this is going against head-to-head Final Fantasy. They delivered a beautiful world, an amazing story, a really likable cast.
Yeah.
I love the
And
cast in that, yeah.
the combat was so interactive. It the timing was so great. You actually felt rewarded for like doing your chains.
Right.
The transformations into the Dragoons was so epic. Seeing the whole journey of starting as like a weakling and then harnessing the power and finding out what the world is actually bringing and trying to accomplish. It was insane. But beating that game was one of my favorite moments because I was over at my buddy Jason's house, and we had stayed up all Saturday night into Sunday morning grinding out the game because he was like, dude, you're almost there. Let's beat the game. And I was like, yes, we're going to beat the game. We made his family 45 minutes late to church. But I beat the game. Saw the ending.
Nice.
And
Don't worry, they still got there in time to give money to the church. They were like, oh, just in time for the second collection plate.
It's the bigger one when you're late.
but the thing that I really love the most about it is that it was so unique that it took your standard tropes of that elemental affinity, but it applied it in a unique way. Like, you didn't have any other games out there where you had these kind of transformations, because the biggest thing you had was Final Fantasy, and all you're doing is summoning. You know, you're not actually seeing your character do anything other than be like magic. You have your cool limit breaks.
That's fair.
But, how emotional to start the game with, we won't say who in case you want to do a watch through or something, but very quickly the death of a loved one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that one hit me hard, man. I love that guy.
There was a really, you're right, there was a pretty important death. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just aping off like Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, I don't care.
Not even close. Nope, this was its own
I think it did
thing.
a good job of establishing the stakes, too. Like, I don't think it was just in there just for the shock value, you know?
No, it was a story element.
Yeah.
No, and it was full-on character development.
Yeah, for characters.
It developed one to a point and then set off another on that point. But the thing, too, that I really did like about this is, I really have to say, is the boss fights were challenging, and they were lengthy to a good point where, like, you had to pay attention to what just happened. You can't just get lucky and mash your way through it with using the same attacks. You have to be focused on what's happening and what was just used, and you have to be
That's probably
very
why
careful.
I didn't beat it.
Yes.
I was only good enough to hit the 3 chains, because I remember watching Casey do the ultimate chain for the main guy, and it ends with like this huge elemental fire strike that's like all 9s, but you just like, and I'm like, I can hit spinning cane, and that was it.
But it was so good. The game was so rewarding, and I will say, the soundtrack's nothing to write home about.
I don't remember the soundtrack.
Exactly, but for when you're
remember the
exploring
characters.
It's just a dragon roaring for 3 minutes.
Dun, 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 dun. Hey!
ooh.
I do remember the characters quite well, and I remember some of the because that was still in the back in the day of like the hand painted backgrounds, like the pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yes, exactly.
I remember a few of those looking quite nice.
Yep.
So I remember that.
Yeah, it was a pretty unique class. I mean, if you wanted to strip them down to their brass tacks, I mean, they were pretty generic archetypes, but they built interesting characters on top of those archetypes.
Yeah,
that
they
made it very
did.
interesting.
I remember them. I can remember most of them.
Yeah, and so that's why I feel Legendary Dragoons is safe number 4.
There was the little blue girl with the hammer. There was the old guy who punched things. There was the big Indian guy who was the barbarian. There was the dark rose lady who taught you how to be a dragoon. Main character who was red.
Dark.
Yep.
Albert who replaced Lovitz, and then well, we don't know why he replaced him. And is that all of them? Is it just 7 guys?
No, you forgot about the girl with the white dragon.
Shayna.
Yeah.
Oh, White
She's
Dragon.
the white dragon.
Oh, okay,
I think that's that.
Hey, that's still not bad then.
No, you
No,
don't
you
Yeah.
can remember them.
I
Yeah.
haven't played the game in 20 plus years, man.
The blue one was Muru.
Yeah.
Did that ever get a remaster?
No.
It's on
was-
PlayStation Network now, but it's not really.
It's not a remaster, and they had rumored, and they had actually started
like
a
an
prototype
upscale.
for the sequel, but it never took off. It got canned quickly.
That's too bad. They should bring that back. That's
They
a
should.
great pick for.
That is a
great
solid
one. I'm
pick.
glad you mentioned that because I didn't have it on my list, and it is a game I really enjoy.
It deserves a full remake.
It sure does.
Especially with Final Fantasy VII getting it now, if they could do Legend of Dragoon now with a graphics upgrade and overhaul the combat into something new, but retain the world and the story, people now would play it, and you have a better market for it, and you have more people playing video games now.
Yeah.
It's the perfect time.
Video games are outperforming Hollywood by a significant margin. Like, video games are.
You know, Mark Cuban hates it when people say stuff like that on Shark Tank, when you talk about how big the market is instead of how you're going to tap into it.
Well, I'm not saying I want to tap in. I'm just saying video games make more money than movies these days.
This is true, though.
All right, so number 4, Legend of Dragoon. Loved it.
All right, well, mine is
a great one.
pretty close in time frame to that. And this is going to be the only Final Fantasy on my list, and I'm recommending Final Fantasy X.
Excellent game.
Number 4, that's
Excellent.
2001. And this was a special one for a couple reasons. First of all, it's the Final Fantasy game I beat, and I never played 7 or 8, which were the big ones. I played a lot of 9, but I never beat it, even though I really liked 9. If I beat 9, 9 would be on the list for sure. But Final Fantasy X was still a lot of fun. I really liked the world because it was like a beach tropical world for most of it. It was definitely different. There was a lot of cool magic. And again, this great cast of characters, you know? So, and I thought the story was really cool about like how the summoners were basically racing to save the world and who was going to make the ultimate sacrifice to be the final summon and things. I'm like, this is really neat.
It is. It's a very
and then I gotta give I gotta do the big spoiler. I'm giving the big spoiler here.
Yeah.
Orin being a ghost.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
That was badass.
Anyway, forget how great the characters were just as characters, but their designs.
Yeah, they look really
They
great.
look great too. My goodness.
I really cared about them.
I know the game gets a lot of crap for this, but I loved it. I liked the Blitzball League. I liked building my Blitzball team.
I cannot handle Blitzball.
Yes.
I was so good at Blitzball. I loved exploring the world, finding, like, you go into a town and you see a guy who looks really unique, and they're like, he's a Blitzball player, I'm going to recruit him. And you know what? He was, and he'd have some stupid power that would score every time. Oh, it was great. Crafting that Blitzball team. And it got to the point where I had all of Waka's guys like sitting on the bench because you could get so many great guys.
Yeah.
No, his goalie is like the best goalie you could get for a long time.
Yep.
But
I have been playing the remaster of Final Fantasy X, and that Blitzball thing, no, I can't do it. I don't have the patience for it. I really, really don't have the patience for it.
Yeah. And then another thing too, just want to point out is again,
beautiful soundtrack too, I might add.
Beautiful soundtrack
and
even that stupid Jex theme. Don't stop, another world awaits you, or whatever.
It's great when they go
like Orange is playing a ghost guitar.
That would have been sweet.
Yeah, but you know what I like too is this is a game where the cutscenes, the full motion video cutscenes, were so gorgeous and they looked amazing.
They still look pretty good.
And they do. And I remember we were watching that and we thought like video games, one day video games will look this good.
Yeah.
And then it actually happened.
Yeah, it looks better now.
Yeah, right? Like as good as those graphics look, when I was watching you play God of War on like the PS5.
It was the PS4 one. It was
PS4
the first one,
HD. I thought I was watching a cutscene.
Yes, but
and I was like, why is he moving
playing
so slow? And then it was actually Derek playing. I was like, man, we're here. This is when we were playing Final Fantasy X. We talked about graphics will look good, this good one day. And it's happened. So Final Fantasy X is just a really special one to me. Just had so much fun playing that. Every phase of that game I enjoyed.
Great combat in it with the you can see like the turns and you can
the
see
seamless
who's doing
switching.
It.
You can pull in.
And like moving people around. I like that part of it.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, just mechanically very, very solid.
My only complaint about it, and this is a complaint now, is when I went to go play the remaster, you cannot select Japanese audio. So I am stuck listening to the American audio. And the American audio is like mono. It's not even like stereo. It is so flat, and it sounds like somebody's like speaking through a can. Like it's so
very tinny.
It's horrible. I couldn't. I was losing my mind. The voice acting is so flat, and I was like, no, give me Japanese, please. But you have to like reset you have to change the internal on the system to Japanese.
Oh, no way.
And then you don't even get English subtitles. So if anyone out there can tell me. I bet you know what? If I get it on PC, I bet you there's an option.
Maybe.
I bet you have to download something.
Hey, if you know how to help Derek out, leave it in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and ring that bell. You can put that at the end of the video if you want.
It's true. Any other comments about Final Fantasy X?
No, just really enjoyed
Excellent
it.
game.
It was just such a solid game.
And shout out to John DiMaggio as Waka.
Yes.
I love looking back at that. I did not know how much I would love to appreciate that the older I got.
Great. No, there's a lot of really good stuff in it, and I agree. I think it's one of the better ones.
There's something to be said about it spawning a direct sequel, too, with 10-2. I know that ruffled a lot of feathers, but I just think that speaks to the love people have for Final Fantasy X.
I think it's well regarded now. I actually do think the fandom's kind of come around to it.
I knew they would have to. It's like, because even I bristled. I'm not even a Final Fantasy fan, but I'm like, ooh, this is really out of scope.
I did like the combat in that one, like how you could shift jobs and get like the different stats.
That was fun. But that fun note about Final Fantasy X too. Back when that actually came out, that was one of the few weekends where I had nothing going on during that school year. So when the game came out. Actually went and picked it up on Friday, and one of the few weekends where I just stayed up for 19 hours and I just played through the entire game. I didn't stop. I just beat it. I missed a lot, obviously, but just to get the story.
That's phenomenal.
You know, that's always been a strength of Final Fantasy games in general, while we're on the subject, is you can be really linear with it and like follow the story, but they also do give you lots of little things you can branch off and do. But that's the thing I like about it, is you focus on the main story. You don't feel shortchanged if you just do that either. It's still a very complete story if you just focus on that.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with that. And I think this is like an RPG mechanic in general. I'm looking at my list, and not many of them are frustrating when it comes to like too many side quests. Because I love
wait for my number 2.
Yeah. I do like side quests, but I don't like when there's so many of them. And I don't like Xenoblade Chronicles, where it's like too many quests.
Yeah, does everything need to be a side quest?
Go collect this, go collect that. These aren't real quests.
Yeah,
I mean,
like you talk to someone like, oh, go talk to this guy, and that's a quest now. It's like, well, I'll just go talk to him. You don't need to put it in my journal.
Final Fantasy 16 has a really good side quest system because you start them early and then they branch into bigger things later in the game. Yes. So it's like a good side quest should help flesh out the world around you. Exactly. It shouldn't be a fetch quest.
Nope.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So Derek, what's your number 4?
All right, my number 4 is Trails in the Sky Second Chapter. I love
beautiful game.
Love the Trails in the Sky franchise. I loved. All right, so I got started with Trails of Cold Steel. Trails of Cold Steel 3 was coming out, and it was highly rated on Metacritic, and everyone was like, "The sequel you've been waiting for." And I'm like, "What? To what?" So I was like, all right, let me go check on PlayStation, and 1 and 2 were on sale because the third one was coming out. So I'm like, okay, so I pick up Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2, just buy them, just to have them. So I'm playing the first one, and I'm like, this is awesome. And they're alluding to like all these things, and like you can follow it. It's not like confusing, but I'm like, I think I'm jumping into something much bigger than just this first game, aren't I? Go online, and like, yeah, there's 3 of them on the computer. I'm like, oh no. So I beat 1, 2, and 3 of Cold Steel, and then I bought my laptop and I played the first Trails in the Sky, and I'm like, this is a great game. I really enjoy this.
Yeah.
And the way it ends, I'm like, oh my God, because I know there's a sequel. I'm like, I can't wait to see how they pick up based on this ending. And boy, do they not disappoint.
Nope.
Estelle Bright is one of my favorite protagonists. You know, it's funny because here at my top 5, in like both of them are like female-led RPGs, but like they're also like the type of characters who, no matter how like dark anything gets, they never really give up, and they always raise the people around them. And especially in that second game, because I'm not going to do spoilers because everybody should play these games. They're so good, and there's
what year did this come out?
I don't know. It's old, man.
I was gonna say statute of limitations has got about spoilers.
Yeah, you're right. And to be honest, it's a pretty big franchise, but like, it's hard to talk about one aspect of the story because it's so interwoven to so many different things. Because this is like there's like 12 games now, or 10 or 11 games in this franchise. But at the end of the first one, something bad happens to one of the main characters. Like there's this huge plot twist reveal. And so the second game is all about like a redemption arc kind of thing, and how Estelle is just not going to let things be the way they are. A lot more politicking gets involved, which does play out in like the Trails of Cold Steel games. So I was glad to play that. But it's overall just like a really fun combat system, really good characters who are constantly like optimistic, even in the face of like extremely terrible situations happening. The ending was excellent, and I can't say enough good things about it. I just really like Estelle Bright. I loved the way that she just wouldn't stop. Like she's like, I have to succeed in this because it is such a personal, important quest set against this huge, epic, JRPG setting. And the combat's phenomenal. You can customize so much of it. It's just a great game. Honestly, play it. Go play those games. They're not that expensive on the PC. And
probably scoop them in a humble bundle at some point.
Dude, it's just really fun, and like I said, I just love Estelle Bright as a character so much, and this game is all about her, and she's just such a great protagonist. I could go on and on about her. Like, she sells the game. The characters are great. They constantly talk about things that happened in the first game. Like it's just a great narrative, great characters.
Yep.
Great combat. I'm there.
The other thing
Sounds
that's
good.
really nice about that franchise is remember how earlier you were saying when a game like jumps ahead and it's like, well, hey, why aren't I level 42 with all this stuff that I just did?
I believe I said level 57, but yes, go on.
But this series
They
does
do
that. At the
Yeah.
end of the first game, you import, you pick right up. So now all the enemies
I
are
like
already
that.
level 40, 57.
Yeah, you just keep
40,
going.
57, oh my.
And even if they are going to start you at level 1, they'll give you like better gear.
Yeah, so
sometimes,
there's
too.
that flex
So-
on it.
because
And-
you still don't want to start too powerful because then the grind and the development is gone. Like when you start at level 1, you get to redevelop your character.
Well, you know, I was just actually, when I said that, I thought of a real life example. You know, after World War II, you think America would be super high level, but they demobilized so quickly that when Korea rolled around, it was like we were level 1 again.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, so it happens in real life, folks.
Yeah. So yeah, go play Trails in the Sky, and then go play Trails in the Sky second chapter. The third game is pretty good too, but it's a completely different format. So
yes, it was.
yeah, but Trails in the Sky second chapter, you got to do it for Estelle Bright. Just excellent character. Excellent character. All right. Number 3.
Number
three. All right. So my number 3.
Wait, do we want to do a quick beer pause?
That's
and
a good play.
Beer pause.